All right, very special moment coming up right now, because there are very few awards tonight which are national awards. This is not only a national award, it's arguably the national award. It's the most prestigious national award in Australian journalism, the Graham Perkin Australian Journalist of the Year. In October, it will be 51 years since the sudden death of one of Australia's finest newspaper editors, Graham Perkin. And tonight, the Melbourne Press Club is proud to present the 50th Australian Journalist of the Year award in his honour. If you look in your programs, you'll see a lot of quotes by and about Graham Perkin. This is one of Australian journalism's richest prizes, sponsored by The Age, Perkin's newspaper. It's a $10,000 cash prize. Please welcome to the stage Partner Emeritus of Minter Ellison and former long-standing Vice President of the Melbourne Press Club, Peter Bartlett, along with Graham Perkin's daughter, Corrie Perkin, and the Deputy Editor of The Age, Orietta Guerra. Peter, I'm going to invite you to come up and say a few words.
Many thanks, Brett. I think I've been given a very difficult task because Graham Perkin, I don't think anyone can really capture the contribution he made to media in Australia. Graham was my first editor. I had something like 25 editors of The Age and Sunday Age that I work with. I remember being sent down to Spencer Street to make a delivery to Graham when I was a very, very young article clerk, and it shown into his office, and it was scary, absolutely scary. In fact, there's a photo in the booklet you've got, the program you've got. The first photo of Graham is exactly how I remember him when I walked in as this very young article clerk. My firm had acted for The Age since 1863, and there was an amazing relationship between Graham and Tony Smith, who was the senior media lawyer in the firm. They would have many, many coffees and lunches, and there was a significant frustration between them at the level of freedom of speech and the public's right to know and the laws, the 7 laws around the states and territories that a publication like The Age had to deal with. They both supported defamation law reform, and I think both of them would be horrified if they realised at that time that we didn't see uniformity in this country till 2005, and even then the laws were so pro-plaintiff. Graham had a wonderful philosophy. If there is muck out there to be raked, it's our job to get out and rake it. And my goodness, he did. He is said to have changed The Age from a dull, moribund publication and made it the very focus of national life. To have woken The Age from a half-century of mediocrity. The Age became a more interventionist campaigning newspaper. It is said he wielded power with integrity, courage, and outstanding ability. He had infectious enthusiasm and energy. And one of the quotes in the publication on your tables is from Harold Evans, who was then editor of the Sunday Times in London. And he made the presentation at the first Perkin Award in 1976. And he said, "We recognise in Graham Perkin someone who gave freedom of the press a moral purpose. He did not just have a belief in this, he had a conviction about it." One of the strengths of a great editor is to surround yourself with quality. And Graham hired brilliant young reporters. He created the Insight Investigative Reporting Team under Ben Hills. Ben alone had over 30 defamation threats against him. And I might say it was great for the aged lawyers who were very, very busy. And it all went to a very, very good cause. Graham set up the Epicure Restaurant Review section, and it was a period where there was the rivers of gold from advertising. I remember being in London and Peter Smark took me to a restaurant for lunch, Tante Claire, and that was in the 1970s, and the individual cost was £140. I hate to think what that is today. He hired Ron Tanberg, a brilliant cartoonist, and Ron was threatened and sued many, many times, but he used to say that he could publish a few more books with the cartoons that I advised should not be published. The Age in 1972 supported the election of the Whitlam government against the views of the company's board. Graham was a strong supporter on editorial independence and very much supported by the then managing director, the brilliant Ranald MacDonald. The Age was known by some as the Spencer Street Soviet, and I used to hear that when I first started work. I might say I never thought it was deserved. In 1975, the day before he died, Graham wrote a hard-hitting editorial calling on the Whitlam government to go and to go now. As many of you will recall, there had been many, many scandals involving the government, that government. And for all of those who are sitting here tonight and have a lawyer on your table, let me just say that the day that Graham had lunch, the day that Graham died, he actually had lunch with 3 of my partners. So just take care tonight. They went to the go-to restaurant at the time was Petty Sessions, which was on the corner of Collins and William Street. And of course, that night, Graham had a massive heart attack. He was only 45. Under Graham, The Age was fearless. He was a great editor, and I think it's very fitting that we are paying this tribute tonight, and it's extraordinary that we are now up to the 50th anniversary of the Perkin Award.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Peter. There's generations who would not have had any first-hand experience of Graham Perkin, but someone who can take us closer is someone who's no longer with us. He was really, I think, one of our finest ever writers in this country, certainly one of our greatest ever journalistic characters, and a former lecturer of mine when I was at RMIT. And here he is talking about Graham Perkin. Les Carline.
I'd always believed and still believe that there's nothing on this earth which a newspaper shouldn't get into, as long as it gets into it responsibly.
Graham Perkin was born in a little one-silo Mallee town out in the scrub, and he came down to the Age as a cadet in 1949. He did just about everything there was to do in journalism. He wanted to try all these new ideas, and ever so often when he did try, someone said, no, Graham, we can't do that. That's not the Age. We're sort of very stodgy chaps here and we don't do those sorts of things. But the moment he became editor, it all changed. He grabbed hold of this newspaper that in many ways had been brain dead for 40 years and made it come alive again.
We got a story on this. Where's Peter? Peter, we got a story. If there's muck to be raked, then it's a newspaper's responsibility to get in and rake it, because I believe there are a few other institutions in the community which can do it. Roy's story's a bit longer. We're going to be ahead.
Graham was a real editor. He actually edited. In the Perkin era, the circulation of the Age was going up all the time. It just kept going up and going up. Why was it going up? Because the paper was full of good writing, because it was interesting, because it cast a very wide net and it tried to interest everyone in the community. And of course it was doing these other things like the Kemlani loans affairs and various other investigative pieces which kept it in the news. So he didn't need to think about the bottom line. The bottom line created itself from good journalism.
What would Graham Perkin say about The Age and other Australian newspapers today, do you think?
I think he'd probably think that the craft had got lost somewhere in all the accountants' jargon. Graham died in 1975, and that was probably the most vigorous year, if you like, of his journalism. You saw in that year all the things that made him so special. The night before he died, he was getting attacked on TV somewhere for bringing down the government or something melodramatic like that. And of course he wasn't.
If the government falls, is that because of the Melbourne Age and the Melbourne Herald?
No, that's a ridiculous question, if I may say so, with the greatest respect. All I think that the Age has done, and the press has done generally in this whole issue, is to attempt to get at the facts.
When Graham died, I think, I lost a very dear friend, and yet, funnily enough, I didn't have a lot to do with him socially, but I had a hell of a lot to do with him at work, and I lost a man I admired, a man I had a lot of fun with, a man I just liked to be around. But I haven't lost him really, because he's still running around in here. I won't ever lose him.
The great Les Carlime talking about the great Graham Perkin. It's fun to see images of when people used to smoke in newsrooms. It wasn't just allowed, it was almost compulsory. Before I come to the finalists, the Melbourne Press Club would like to thank the judging panel, Gay Alcorn, Cameron Stewart and Andrew Rule. Everyone who's had the honour of judging this award, and I've done it myself, knows it's a bugger of a job and it's a wonderful job because you're sifting through the very finest. The journalism is distinguished by the hard yards of reporting, the challenges of delivering the story, often under significant pressure. No wonder the Perkin recognises the best Australian journalism. Our finalists for the 50th Australian Journalist of the Year award are Rachel Brown, ABC News, Adele Ferguson, ABC News, Robin Riley, Herald Sun, and Ben Smee, Guardian Australia. Rachel's work includes her extensive coverage of the mushroom trial. Adele's for her revelatory series on the crisis in our national childcare system. Robin's for her scoop and subsequent stories on the Monash IVF scandal. And Ben's for his series on Queensland's domestic violence failures. Congratulations to all our finalists. So, to announce the winner of this year's prestigious award, please welcome Graham's daughter, Corrie Perkin.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Peter, for those lovely words. I'd love to say 50 years ago you and I were 5 years of age, but that would be a total lie. Just before I announce the winner, very briefly, I would like to thank and acknowledge the Melbourne Press Club, Michael and of course Nick and your board for your ongoing support of this award. It means a great deal to our family and I thank you on everyone's behalf. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank Ranald MacDonald and his board at the time at David Syme & Co, who within a few days of my dad's death had the idea that an award named after him that the Age financially supported might be a good idea. I can't imagine the conversation around that board table at the time. It was an office that was dumbstruck. As Peter sort of alluded to, they were traumatised, they were saddened, they were grieving. And with Ranald's leadership, they forged this award, and 50 years later, here we are. I do urge you all to look at the roll call. I have been at many of those events, most of them, and it's a remarkable group. And tonight, we add someone else to that amazing list. The winner of the 50th Graham Perkin Journalist of the Year is Adele Ferguson of ABC News.
A child dragged across the ground. 2 toddlers running towards traffic. We're told they're one-off cases. They're not.
Adele's work on a broken childcare system in Australia was journalism at its finest.
Parents wouldn't have any idea what's going on at some centres, but we do.
It was of high public importance and interest, doggedly pursued over many months, revelatory and with impact.
All centres are meant to have a quality rating. 10% don't. Another 10% don't meet the national standards. The ones that do are assessed on average every 4 years.
It exposed the structural issues behind the headlines and was the clear standout entry this year.
Journalist of the Year, Adele Ferguson. Adele, would you like to say some words?
Wow, thank you so much. It's an extraordinary honour to receive an award that carries Graham Perkin's name, someone who believed journalism should be fearless, independent and in the public interest. It's a standard that matters always. To receive it on the 50th anniversary of this award makes it even more special. I want to acknowledge my fellow finalists, Rachel Brown, Robin Riley and Ben Smee. Their work this year has been outstanding and it's a privilege to be in their company. Thank you to the judges for recognising this body of work, 2 documentaries on Four Corners and a series of stories on 7:30, all which sought to shine a light on the childcare sector, an area built on trust and where the consequences of failure are profound. The Graham Perkin Award recognises an individual, but almost without exception, it's a collective effort. The childcare series was very much a team effort. Crews, editors, researchers, lawyers, graphics, social and many others behind the scenes played a role in bringing these stories to light. Sean Nichols, my boss, thank you so much. Joe Piccini, you're amazing. And thank you for your support and leadership, everybody at the ABC, and also to my husband Christian for all that you do. But most of all, thank you to my producer, Chris Gillette, who's so much more than that. I work alongside Chris every day, and I've seen firsthand the care he brings to this work, the instinct, the judgment, and the quiet determination to get it right, no matter how hard it is. As a TV producer, he is no doubt the best in the country. I'm so proud and lucky to work with him. Every day, 1.5 million children go to childcare, and parents believe they'll be safe. We discovered too often it's not the case. What we discovered was confronting in a way that's really hard to describe. There were days it was difficult to keep going, something I've never experienced in my career. The material we were working through, the stories we hear, it really stays with you. Like a baby repeatedly slapped on the face by an educator for fun, children strapped in high chairs for hours and force-fed, kids dragged, kicked, and one used as a human mop to wipe vomit. And then there were the pedophiles. Working on an investigation into pedophiles infiltrating childcare meant sitting with material that no one should have to read, accessing chats on dark web forums where pedophiles shared tactics on what to do, how to do it, and how to avoid detection was absolutely blood-curdling. One day on the way to a shoot, our cameraman Rob Hill asked about the dark web material. I tried to answer, but nothing came out. Chris was the same. It was the weirdest thing. The stuff was so evil and so disturbing, it was beyond language, beyond verbalising out loud. And that's why this work matters. Holding a mirror up to that kind of harm to vulnerable children isn't easy, but it forces a reckoning, and sometimes it forces change. And none of it would have been possible without the people who speak out, even when gag orders were in place. The whistleblowers, the parents, the educators. In many cases, when we first called them, you could feel a sense of relief that the truth might finally be told and something just might happen. Throughout my career, I've worked with whistleblowers who've taken enormous risks, They're the people who've put their careers, their reputations, and sometimes their safety on the line. They're not doing it for recognition. They're doing it because they believe something is wrong and needs to be exposed. They're quite simply the heroes of this work. Another hero in this investigation is New South Wales politician Abigail Boyd, who I approached about using parliamentary powers to force the release of regulatory documents that may otherwise never have seen the light of day. Abigail faced significant pushback, but she held her ground and saw it through. The hundreds of thousands of pages that followed were a game changer. They revealed serious failings, exposed weak oversight, and confirmed what we were seeing wasn't isolated, it was systemic. Even some of the big corporate chains knew it. Hours before we were due to go to air on one of the stories, the PR of one of the big childcare companies was still having a go, trying to play down how bad the breaches were, saying, "Our numbers are industry standard." In other words, we're no worse than anyone else. It was a novel form of spin. That's when it really became clear to me that this sector has been forgotten for too long. We've allowed private companies to make a profit from educating kids without the necessary oversight. I love my job. I couldn't imagine doing anything else. To wake up each day and be able to ask questions, make things uncomfortable for those doing the wrong thing, and when it matters, making a difference. The childcare investigation has helped trigger change, but there's still a long way to go. And that's the work. It's what Graham Perkin stood for, and what this reward reminds us to keep going. Thank you.
Thanks, Adele. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you, Adele. I'm glad you love your job, because we love your work. We hope it continues. And can I point out, Adele is only the fourth journalist to win the Perkin more than once. She won her first in 2015, and tonight's honour is a recognition of a stellar career of sustained news breaking and agenda setting in the great tradition of the Perkin Award. One more time, let's hear it for Adele Ferguson.